Good evening and welcome to the Town of Stow Select Board meeting of October 10th, 2023. Our first order of business is public comment for anything that is not on the agenda. If you have a comment, please raise your real or virtual hand. And we will give you 2 minutes once you've identified yourself. By the way, we do not have our Stow TV recording person tonight. He is ill, so we are recording on Zoom and we'll post the recording later.
There are no hands.
Seeing nobody for public comment, we'll move on to a proclamation. National Friends of Libraries Week, which is October 15th through the 21st, 2023. Whereas Randall Library Friends Association raises money that helps our library provide additional programming, much needed equipment, support for children's summer reading, and special events throughout the year. And whereas the work of the Friends highlights how our library is a vital and vibrant part of the community, providing opportunities for all ages to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and connect with the thoughts and ideas of others from ages past to the present. And whereas the Friends understand the critical importance of well-funded libraries and advocate to ensure that our library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services to our community, including access to print and electronic materials, along with expert assistance in research, readers advisory, and children's services. And whereas the Friends' gift of their time and commitment to the library sets an example for all in how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Select Board does hereby proclaim October 15th to 21st, 2023 as National Friends of Libraries Week in the town of Stow, and that all residents are encouraged to support Randall Library and explore the wealth of resources available online or in person in their temporary location. Anybody have comments or?
Everything's great. Are you ready?
Yes.
You ready for a motion?
Sure.
Madam Chair, I move to approve and sign a proclamation for National Friends of Libraries Week, October 15th to the 21st, honoring the local nonprofit service group, Randall Library Friends Association, for their work in the community.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
Sounds great.
So we would like to present you with this proclamation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have board member comments. Anybody going once, twice? Hector.
Just to acknowledge that today is Mental Health Awareness Day, and as the Stow Police Department posted on their Facebook page, don't stay silent. If you feel you need some help, please reach out and get some help.
Thank you. Denise, your report?
I know this is shocking, but I have nothing for you all this evening.
That is a first.
It is first.
You too would like
It's been a crazy couple weeks, so I don't have anything.
It's quite all right. So next we have an appointment to approve the assignment of Christopher Kusz to the role of senior detective.
So. Nobody's sitting up front, right? So we actually had a resignation. Brendan Fitzpatrick decided to pursue a career as a firefighter over in Boston, so we won't hold that against him. Sorry, Chief. But he so he decided to leave his position here in the Stow Police Department. He'd like to come back someday once he gets settled in Boston. But that left the position of senior detective. We have two detectives and they've been, as part of the contract, they're separated into a senior who has more time and then the junior who has less time in that position. Chris Kusz has been in that position in the junior position for a couple of years now. He's the only one left. So for the contract, I have to, if I want to bump him up to the senior position, I have to recommend him to this board and to get your approval for that. And it does mean a little bit of a raise for him, so he could be excited about that. He's been doing the job for a couple of years now. Again, there's no, other than the time and position, there was no difference in roles between the two. So, and he's understands that he has to pick up everything and kind of run the detective, all the detective cases until we figure out what we're going to be doing for that next position.
Okay. Cool. Any comments, anybody, questions? Take a motion.
Ready for motion? Madam Chair, I move to approve the assignment of Christopher Kusz to the role of senior detective for the Stow Police Department through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a special event permit for the fall festival at Stow Acres. Kathy. Sure.
Yes. That's them. Thank you. The Stow Conservation Department and the Stow Recreation Department are planning to jointly hold a fall festival on the north course of Stow Acres on October 29th from 1 to 4 p.m. The idea is that it'll be a chance for residents, families to get out and explore the north course. It's going to be closed to golf that day or that afternoon. There'll be pumpkin painting and face painting and games for kids. There'll be a self-guided tour of a new trail that we just finished today. That's very beautiful, and a scavenger hunt, golf cart tours for people who want to see more of the property. And then informational tables about our master planning process. I think Stow Soccer is going to be there. The Scouts may be there. So a number of groups will be there with information about things that are going on in Stow. So it's a first. I don't know if we'll do it again, but we're really doing it in conjunction with our master planning process that's going on right now. So it'll be a chance for people to see the property and let us know what they think they'd like to see there.
It's great.
Any questions, comments?
I think Oars is gonna have a table there
Oars
too.
is gonna have a
So
table
that
there.
on the, with respect to the waters in that area.
Yep.
And how they play a role with the Aspet River.
Rediscover Maple Dale is gonna have a table there.
Okay.
To go over history, and so there'll be a lot going on, hopefully. Praying for good weather.
It's a weekend, so it's gonna rain.
I know. We did just find out today that we do have the option of having a sort of stripped down event in the grill at Stow Acres, the little restaurant there. So for people that have tables and stuff, if it does rain, we'll be able to have folks enjoy themselves there.
Let's plan on it being sunny.
I'm hoping so. Sundays seem better than Saturdays.
Yeah. That sounds great. And I think I saw all your paperwork and so forth is in order. Did you have a? No. Sounds great.
You ready for motion?
Sure.
Great. Madam Chair, I move to grant a special event permit to the Stow Conservation and Recreation Departments for a fall festival on Sunday, October 29th from 1 to 4 p.m., 12 to 5 p.m., including setup and cleanup at Stow Acres North Course, pending town administrator approval that all necessary documents have been received.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
You
Thank
are
you.
welcome.
Expect to see you all there.
Next, we have a special event permit for the Stow Gobbler on Thursday, November 23rd. And let's see, I think we have somebody on Zoom for that.
Yes.
Yep, we have Adrian Hoey and Caitlin Smith, who's the race director, on for that. So we're looking to have a permit approved by the board for the 16th annual Stow Gobbler. It's a national treasure. It really is. People love it. It's very competitive. We actually have the police running a team of 5 people this year. So we're asking for your permission. We think we have all our documents in line. I'd like to give you some background as to how the Stow Chest got involved in this. So last year, traditionally it was volunteers, student volunteers that ran it, and then they got old and they moved on and they got other interests. So the mothers took it on, as mothers do. And then myself and another board member met with the mothers last year who said they were completely exhausted with it and they couldn't take it on anymore. So the Stow Community Chest stepped in at the last minute and we put it on. We raised about $21,000 out of last year. And we could have done better, but we literally stepped in at the last minute. And then we decided, why don't we just take this on from now on? This year we granted $78,000 to Stow communities. And part of that was funded by the Stow Gobbler. So we formed this crack operations team led by Caitlin Smith, who's absolutely wonderful. And a great addition to the team. And we're much more organized this year. I think we've ticked all the boxes. I was going to go through the contingencies very quickly. Yes, we have police and fire. I see them both there. We have 1 Bolton officer and 4 Stow officers, because we run into, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but we run like 2 minutes into Bolton.
Yeah, the coming out of Old Bolton Road, crossing over 117 onto Delaney Street for that 75 feet is Bolton. So
so I had to go on front of the Bolton Select Board and they just thought it was hilarious. They're like, why are you here? I'm like, I have to be. General liability insurance, naming the town of Stow. Caitlin, do you want to talk to that very briefly?
Yes, so our application's in with US Track and Field, and it's been approved, but they don't issue insurance and documents until their policy runs November 1st through November 1st. And so certificates should be issued in the coming weeks, and we'll have it then to be able to actually provide to you. But our submission to them has been approved, so it's just a matter of getting that last piece of documentation.
Great, awesome. And then signs, we have temporary and removable signs, so we don't believe that we need to have it inspected by the building department prior to the event. Caitlin, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so just for signage, we have a lot of yard signs really that we'll be using to promote all of our wonderful sponsors along the course, as well as similar type signs along the route to make sure our runners are going in the right direction. And then we have like a simple kind of, fabric canvas signs that that we set up at the pavilion and at the start line. But nothing's permanent. It all breaks down very quickly and easily.
Perfect. And then number 4 is portable restroom facilities, the contract to be provided to the Board of Health. We got word from the chair of the board who dealt with this. She's never actually reached out to the Board of Health in any of the years she's been doing this. It's literally a phone call to the porta potty company. So if that's an issue, let us know and we will rectify that. Number 5, snacks are pre-packaged. Yes. And Caitlin, I believe you've talked to the Board of Health about this.
I talked to the Board of Health, and because everything's pre-packaged, they said we're good and they don't need to issue anything.
Perfect. And number 6 is that we participate in any public safety meetings required, which neither Caitlin nor myself have heard about. We're happy to attend anything. And I think that checks off all the boxes.
Been very thorough.
Mhm.
Thank you.
As far as the public safety meeting go, it's the same operational plan that we've used for years. The fire chief, myself, have seen it. It's the same one we've used. And Bolton PD has seen it. So we're keeping that the same. I've sent it to both the Adrian and, well, I didn't send it to Caitlin, but they've been reviewing it, and it's everything that we've done in the past that we're gonna continue to do. Roads will be blocked. We'll post on our social media sites to expect delays. We'll keep the roads open. It is not a closed course. It is a monitored course. That's what we call it. We'll have, we'll probably have four officers, plus the two that are on duty that day anyway, so 6, and then the ones that are running too, including myself. So we'll be out there. So we're
What do
all
you
set.
fancy your chances, Mike?
Well, I'll lead the race for about 4 steps. So. So we don't need any more public safety meetings, so we're good there.
Thank you. Okay, sounds great. Sounds like you checked all the boxes. I am.
Are you ready for a
I
motion?
am ready.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to grant a special event permit for the Stow Gobbler 5K Run Walk sponsored by the Stow Community Trust on Thanksgiving Day, Thursday, November 23rd, 2023, from 6:30 to 11 a.m. Pending town administrator approval that all necessary documents have been received.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. There you go. You have a
Thank
permit.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for running.
Can I possibly add something just for them?
Okay,
It's not controversial, I promise. I'm doing a road race for an organization I work with this weekend, and I literally own everything in my garage. So if you guys need tents, tables, water stations, Gatorade, please just reach out.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you.
thanks. All right. Going down the list, we have the town administrator's performance evaluation. I wonder, since we have a number of people here, I believe, for the common road discussion, if we could take things out of order. Is there any
That's fine.
objection or concurrence?
No, it's fine. Makes sense.
Let's do the discussion of common road, and the recommendation of the.
Now they're coming.
Yeah, we can-
Two of them.
Two of us. Two of us.
Enforce.
Well, it's not for us, we work together.
It's-
We have a common theme.
We,
I like, yeah,
I just need a second.
Are you gonna do the thing?
you got high tech, right? I'm gonna break it, but we got. It's not gonna work.
I'm not 100% on this, but you guys have worked hard, so who am I to say?
So, from the memo that we, produced your packet, on October 3rd, 2003, we had a public, forum to discuss the concept of common road becoming one way. This discussion's been going on for at least 10 years with safety concerns of traffic and pedestrian and bicyclists on common road. We have tried to mitigate traffic speeds by putting up a feedback sign that just tells you the speed that you're going. And it's finally come to this point where we felt though a decision or a recommendation should be made to the select board on a possible change. After hearing comments from the public, looking at stats, which we'll present to you very shortly, the committee, Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, is recommending that common road becomes one way. And presentation that Chief Sleepsy has can outline the reasons why and what our plan recommendation is.
So, as Chief stated, we've been discussing this project for a number of years, with the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee back when Jesse was here. And then before that, there were other discussions amongst some other boards about this, as we heard from other boards that it's been going on for 10 years now. I'm pushing the button.
It's, you just have to pause because it's through Zoom, so it'll
Okay.
take a second.
Oh, sorry. So Common Road, for those of you who don't know, it's the road that runs in front of the First Parish Church as well as the Randall Library. And just so we all have common terminology, when we talk east to west for Common Road, because that's the way the direction flows, or west to east. Going west would be from Great Road to Library Hill, and going east would be going from Library Hill the other direction to Great Road. So I'm gonna go slow. So we identified some issues going on with Common Road. Excessive speeding, it's a cut through. There are some dangerous intersections. There's long traffic queues, parking, there's a lack of signage. Pedestrians walking to and from Upper Common across the street, coming out of their cars, are trying to mitigate the cars that are traveling up and down east and west on Common Road, with cyclists going by. One of the issues with parking is that, you know, you're supposed to be parking the right side of your vehicle along the right side of the road. That doesn't happen on Common Road. People just park wherever they need to. So they can't see if they're parked the wrong way. They can't see with people walking if they're parking the wrong way when they pull out of those spaces. So we looked at all of these problems and say, how can we make this better? As the chief stated, we did put up the speed feedback sign that did help, but it just notifies people how fast they're going. There's no like enforcement part of that. We did try putting officers out there for radar. That was only a temporary solution, but not a, you know, it works well when we're there. It doesn't work well when we're not there. And the other part is we find that I especially find, and I've made a couple stops in the past couple of weeks, of 3 lanes of parked cars. So we'll have someone parked on the common side, someone parked right in front of the library, and then someone parked right in the middle of the road. So that becomes an issue because nobody can get by. And that does happen. What were our goals?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. So what were our goals? So, you know, with the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, we want to make sure that the road will be safe for everybody. And part of the charge is to come up with low cost, effective measures that we can do and implement. That's part of the policy and the charge that the select board gave us. And so we looked at, you know, putting a seat feedback sign up. We did look at, well, could we possibly do, what was the cost of speed bumps? And that's, you know, upwards around $140,000 for to put a speed bump in. Plus those aren't ADA compliant. So we look at speed tables. Those are again around the same price, around over $100,000 because we have to worry about drainage. And then we really want, you know, working with the planning, we really wanted to put in sidewalks. We wanted to make a walkable area. We want to connect it to the rest of the walkable downtown area that I know that Valerie is trying to implement as well. So we wanted to slow the vehicles down. We want pedestrians to be able to use it. We want cyclists to travel with it. I mean, these are all the things that we're also looking at our complete streets policy that we adopted as a town years ago to try to make the roadway useful for everybody. So what did we look at? So I know that we put out the a traffic counter, which is the tubes that are on the road. The speed feedback sign does collect data, but we did not use that because we know that sign does pick up 117 at displacement. So we didn't want to skew that data at all. And plus people will see how fast they can get that sign to read. And we know that. So we use just the tubes on the down on the ground that you see people running over. We were able to get that. That's a fairly new tool that we have. We were able to get that through a grant, which was awesome. So what did we see? We saw that some of these numbers I'm going to get into, break it down later, but weekday trips on the road, about 300 cars a day. And most of them, 75% of them were going westbound, where 27% were going eastbound. Most people were actually doing 25 miles an hour. There was one maximum recording of around almost 41 miles an hour, which is very, very fast for that road. What are we looking for in the future? Again, as I stated, we want it walkable. We want it want people to feel safe going across the street, using our upper common, going to the memorial, going to the library, going to the church. So we want everybody to be able to use this road in a safe manner. So this is the existing, what Common Road looks like right now. This is where all the traffic turns and comes in and goes out of, cars come in and out of the Great Road, Common Road intersection, cars come in and out of the library, Common Road intersection. There's a parking lot just as you enter in on the east side to the church, which is used also by the daycare or the preschool there, as well as there's a parking lot just to the west of the church lot, in between the church and the library. So what we proposed and what we recommend is that the Common Road be made one way on the westbound side, with access leaving the church open on their east entrance. So people can still leave on their east entrance as they normally would and turn left or right onto Great Road. But those that are up further by the library or on their west side entrance would have to continue west onto Library Hill Road and take a left or right. So that's where we're proposed so far. Before I continue, I know it's like drinking water from a fire hose. So is there any questions? No.
Good. Thank you.
All right.
But there will be.
But there will be, okay. So we looked at like, what is, I wanted to break it down even more because there was questions at the public hearing and I did hear what people said and said, well, you know, there's gonna be all these cars being pushed from Library Hill onto 117. They can't turn anymore. So what was that actual data? What was the amount of cars that are actually gonna be pushed out? So we found that the average, we had the counter out there, depending on the time of day. And I say that because when I put the counter down and when I picked it up, when it was at 11 o'clock in the morning, it was like 3 in the afternoon. So it was around between 15 to 16 days. So if you're doing the math as you're looking at the numbers there, that's why you're going to see some numbers are divided by 15 compared to 16, just based on the time. But for the average daily over the course of those 3 or 2 weeks, just more than 2 weeks, you'll see that most hours going westbound were between, as we would all expect, between 7 and 10 o'clock. And then again, there's a little bit more traffic on around 12, but then continuing till about 4 or 5 o'clock. Now that was going westbound. Those are all the cars going westbound. What's in gray is what the total number of cars were for that actual coverage of the coverage for the whole time. So this was the, I'm sorry, so yeah. Again, the average number of totals per week. So that was, the other one was per day, this one was per week. So same data set point for the total, but each week it just shows how many cars during that time period for that whole entire week. So this, we'll just say 7 o'clock has 54 cars for that whole week. So each week has about 54 cars that were traveling west on a common road, which is again going from Great Road to Library Hill. The daily traffic from eastbound in that same time frame over the daily traffic was around 2. And then again, for the total number of over the 3 weeks that we were watching this, 21 cars during that same time frame went down eastbound. So if we look at that on an average, only 2 vehicles would be pushed down. Now, closer to 8 o'clock, you would see 14 cars. So 14 cars would be pushed down onto Great Road from that wouldn't be able to turn down and use Common Road as a cut through. Great Road is a main thoroughfare and it's a state highway. So it is designed to be able to take well more than these totals. So the average total per week this is what we saw per week. So for the whole week, there were 47 cars, and then we had it for 3 weeks, just between that 8 and let's say the 8 and 9 period, 8 and 9 a.m. period. If we look on the flip side for the weekday total, between 6 and 7, that was the most time. So again, 26 cars per week, or the whole time we were watching it, it was 76 cars were traveling eastbound. So 79 cars were traveling eastbound. I mean, 79 cars over a 3-week period would have been pushed down to Brave Road, instead of being able to cut through. And then this is just a comparison of the daily traffic between the two, between westbound and eastbound. Everything in green is eastbound, everything in black is westbound. And so you can see that on the average, again, during the high points, there are some vehicles that are more going eastbound, and that's in the morning, between 8 and 9, and then in the afternoon, I think there was, I don't think there was one in the afternoon, just in the morning, there were 2. Everything's dependent on what's going on between the church and what's going on with the library. And even during the weekend, during the church times, there was still more vehicles going westbound than there were going eastbound. And so average number of trips, this is again eastbound and in the green, westbound in the black. This is the total number that we would see each week. So for the whole week, you can see that, again, westbound had a lot more traffic going westbound than eastbound. Even during the high points on the weekend, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on the weekend, you can still see more vehicles traveled westbound. So again, going back to our original recommendation, this is part of our policy as a traffic safety advisory, is just to come in and recommend this to you all and say, this is what we feel is public safety to make it a safer roadway. It does happen to coincide with the building of the library, which we know that the road due to construction and room for construction will be shut down in front of the library for the next 15-18 months, or however long it is. So when the road reopens, it's going to be like a new start. And that was some of my thinking and my recommendation of the making the road like a different traffic pattern. I know that there are other plans for other departments and boards that are looking at the whole center project. And we can, incorporate that by telling them, say, listen, this is how we decided as a town, and they can make the signalization work for the lights. They can make, how do we make this intersection work better? By incorporating all of this, with this part being one way. So, Chief, do you have anything else?
In the process of discussing this, we did reach out through planning to the MPO in regards to their recommendations, Common Road, and they had none. We read through their advisory. Valerie actually contacted them, and they really had no recommendation on if it should say 2-way or 1-way. I can say from a fire department aspect, responding on that road with an engine, oncoming traffic with cars parked on both sides is extremely dangerous. It delays in our response. We did, as the chief mentioned, we did hear a lot of different comments, such as what if we would allow 1-way during certain hours going east and 1-way going west the other hours. It complicates things. So we truly did look at a lot of the comments. We did look at a lot of different things, and this is the recommendation that we have to the select board at this time.
And we're also looking at continuing to make improvements to that roadway as well. So, I think in the letter, I know in the letter that we sent to you, it was not only just the 1-way, but it was continuing to add a raised crosswalk in front of the library, and it was the defined parking in down Common Road. Also, there was one more signage, better signage too. So there are and the sidewalk as well too. So there are other improvements as well. It's not just one thing. We're looking at this from the bigger picture of everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Happy to take any comments or questions.
Questions from the board? Thank you, board.
Go for it.
Well, you raised your hand first.
I think it was a time.
I was looking at you.
Okay. Do you know why I know no one has a crystal ball, but why are people in the morning traveling eastbound? Are they trying to avoid the light?
Yeah, yeah.
But then how do they get on going eastbound with, oh, they wait for the light to get the break and the timing?
I mean, yeah.
So my only question besides that one is, are you at all concerned about the conflict and movement of eastbound people turning in at the new entrance?
So
Especially during commuter hour, or school hours, because I noticed there's a big tick in your numbers.
correct. So mainly a lot of it is the school, the preschool there. Right. So that's where we're having, people come and drop off. But the numbers, the sheer amount of numbers is small. And it's not all day. It's like during that specific time. And it's not like there's some other places on 117 which has that issue where it's all day long, every single day. And it's for hours between like 11 and 6 at night, where we're seeing that kind of traffic. Where these cars are coming in, and there is that break anyway. There's a break that they're gonna turn left. That intersection is quite wide too, so you're gonna have less people trying to. If it's one way, let's say it's one way. You're gonna have less cars trying to exit out of Common at Great Road as well too, so there's gonna be more room for them to turn into. Because you're not gonna get all the cars coming down.
Right, so
trying to get
they'll
out.
all come and take advantage of that intersection.
Exactly.
Right, so that was my only concern, is what is the danger of that left turn crossing the
Correct.
westbound traffic? So
Which, right, I understand that.
that's all?
So I know that the library reconstruction, I found out from that meeting last week that the main entrance to the library is going to be moved to Library Hill Road.
That's what I understand.
No?
So it's not, it's gonna be facing Library Hill Road, but it's still accessed from Common Road. So we will be restoring the historic main entrance and putting in a new entrance that will both face Library Hill, because the way it is now, you come off Common Road and you go right into a door. This will add a little bit of a courtyard, so you'll walk into the door off of Common Road, but it will just face Library Hill.
Okay,
But it's still on Common Road is where the secondary entrance will be.
so we're not increasing pedestrian traffic on Library Hill.
Well, that will be the second part of this in parking. So
Right.
potentially we'd increase pedestrian traffic if the only parking availability is across the street at the fire station, the former fire station.
Cause I'm wondering if we do have an increase in pedestrian traffic there, does it make more sense to flow one-way traffic away from it? Eastbound on Common Road rather than westbound?
Well, if we're pushing traffic eastbound. Then they're gonna have to, and they have to loop back around to go back up Library Hill Road. You're still gonna get that same cross traffic on Library Hill onto Crescent Street. And that's where you're gonna be crossing anyway, is at that protected crosswalk at Crescent Street at Library Hill, which we actually have a lot of young individuals who come from Hale School and they cross over at that intersection now anyway.
So if we stick to the westbound,
Mhm.
I've tried many different times a day to turn left from Common Road onto Library Hill Road.
Mhm.
And during high traffic areas,
Mhm.
it almost feels suicidal. Even though it still feels a little safer than trying to get out on 117, but especially with the way many cars come darting out of Crescent Street through the stop sign and turn left. And it's been a few times I've almost been nailed, and if there's a lot of traffic backed up, I can't get out.
So, and that's where, I'm sorry, that's where the whole signalization would come in, and that's working with the planning board and working with the project of the whole town center project would come into, because we've made recommendations over the years. And that's not what this is about, like about that Library Hill Road. I think the chief and I both said, we need a turning lane in there. We need to have the timing needs to be changed. We need to do, and because of the way the law is, it's like if we touch that intersection, the timing and everything, then we have to, it just triggers all these other things that we have to do.
Right,
So that's where we continue to work with Valerie and the planning board and the town center project and say, okay, this is what what we're looking for. Well, no, let's make it work over here, because I agree with you, that intersection right now, that needs to be worked on. There needs to be adjustments to that. There needs to be a turning lane there, or whatever they suggest, or, because what happens, I've seen it. You get two cars next to each other and they're racing down 62 because which way do you go? And so I agree with you that, and if we can tell them, if we can tell who's doing this town center project and say, this is how we're doing it, they could be like, okay, then we're gonna need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do that.
So by doing this first, we
We can tell.
may
them.
force the issue to review that intersection. Okay.
Denise,
Sorry.
come back to you.
Yeah, definitely.
I just wanted to respond. So a couple things about pedestrian safety there. We certainly took that into consideration with the library project. That's why, as part of the project, we're proposing sidewalks to go from Common Road up and around. So the pedestrians should be able to cross. If they're coming from Hale School, they'll cross at a crosswalk. Potentially as part of the center project, we'll have maybe more lighted crosswalks like we do elsewhere in town. And then they cross and they'll be on the library property. So they'll have a much better sidewalk. They'll have access to the front of the building, the historic front. And then I guess the goal would be, as part of the center project, to have an actual crosswalk so people coming from here can cross the street safely, because there is no way. And for that, they would bring them into the common and they could walk through the common to get to the library or to get to the church or to get to someplace else. Because right now there's no crosswalk, there's no safety. You just cross when you feel like you can cross. So the goal would be is sort of, as the chief alluded to, a two-step process. It's, the goal, if it's a one-way, then the library project proceeds with the sidewalks and the pedestrian safety, then the traffic study of the center then includes all that and figures out how to make it safer, how to incorporate these changes for the pedestrians, for the bicyclists, for the vehicles. Because it all does work hand in hand. And so, it's almost like, the chicken and the egg, and what part do you do first? And there has been a lot of debate about that. And ultimately, because of the library project going on, working with traffic safety, it was like, well, now's the time to address this piece of it. The traffic center study actually was supposed to take place 18 months ago. And it got delayed with changeover in the planning department. And then the MPO actually just was non-responsive for months. So we kept reaching out, Valerie reached out, and then they got back to us if someone was on maternity leave, so this actually would have all been done last year, because town meeting 2022 funded the study. But because now that's delayed, it was like, well, we can't just keep delaying when there's clearly a safety issue there. So that's why it's all sort of coming together now in this order.
So this isn't going to be implemented for a couple of years, basically, right?
Right.
What you need to know now, or what reason?
So the library bid, 1,165 page bid hit the market last Wednesday. Through all the planning, through the zoning meetings, the discussion has been a one-way. So the library is designed for a one-way to incorporate patio, the sidewalks, the raised crosswalk, parking. If that doesn't happen, we either need to know now to issue an addendum, otherwise it's change orders and it's gonna cost us more money.
Great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And from our perspective, on our side too, it's, again, the road will be closed, right?
Right.
And then when we open it back up again, if we have this in place, it's gonna be a fresh start for people.
Right, because with it being closed, it's not a matter of retraining. And anything in traffic, former law enforcement, I was involved. The toughest thing is retraining in a traffic group. It always has been, it always will be. It's just human nature. But with it closed, and by doing this now and getting it set up, besides the sidewalks and everything else, we're not having to deal with added extra expense, which can come up for a retraining period of time.
So the other question, and tell me if we need to delay this part of the conversation, but part of the discussion is also about the parking. If we do parking on one side, what's to prevent people from parking on the other side anyway? Big check there, because
Yeah.
last year,
Yeah.
I was the one that went to the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee and asked, could you put signs say no parking on the church side of Common Road, especially in the wintertime.
Mhm.
They did. There were snowbanks, there were signs, and there were still cars parked right in front of the sign.
So so parking and enforcement, I think is a different conversation for us on the board. You know, and we'd be happy to have that conversation. And, you know, yes, we have the power to ticket, and yes, we have the power to tow cars and authority to do all that stuff. I think one step at a time, and, you know, if we have to put up a sign, or if we have to say no parking from here to here, or on the north side of Common Road, no parking on the north side, which would be the church side and the library side. We could do that, you know, those are things that we could discuss. This was more about the flow and getting the flow going in the right direction.
So we'll do that as a separate topic.
We can revisit that and make a recommendation. Absolutely, you can put that on our agenda for, because I know what you were there you were the one who made the request to put those no parking signs up. You know, and that just has to be a reminder for the, you know, for the police department to make sure that if we do that again, to get out there and say, okay, we can't, you know, we got to enforce this. You know, sometimes putting a little reminder note from the police department on someone's windshield helps, you know, that they don't do it next time. So, you know, there's options for us, and I've always said, you know, we're not gonna ticket every single person, you know, sometimes a little education goes a long way.
Yes.
But even if it was to be one way, having cars parked on both sides of the road in front of First Parish would still allow emergency vehicles to get through.
Have you seen how some people park?
No,
Because there were Sundays where so full disclosure, I'm a member of First Parish Church, and I went up to the pulpit and asked, could you please move your vehicles? There's no way a fire truck could get down this road. So I wouldn't trust that. And I know that we're going to discuss taking 2 to 5 feet from the common to expand the road to make official parking spots on one side. I still wouldn't trust it. There's people and they're not being evil or malicious about it, they're just not thinking about it.
And in fairness to those people, like all the people that use the church and everything, I think it would be like for the traffic safety committee to put it on the agenda, to hear feedback from, you know, the churchgoers and the church representatives, and say, you know, this is what we're thinking, this is the idea, okay, you know, what's, you know, in front of your church, we're gonna make it a no parking on one side. What's your thoughts on this? Before, you know, we present it again to the select board as a recommendation. I think it'd be fair to hear from them first. I know how you feel.
So for me, it was really helpful to have the data showing that a lot of the traffic travels westbound already, and rather than try to retrain all those people, even if the road's going to be closed. I mean, if there's a predominant use going westbound, it makes sense to restrict it in that direction.
Not restricted in that direction. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sorry, not restricted, to restrict the eastbound traffic. So I don't think, I guess personally, I have refrained from trying to make an eastbound turn out of the church end for years, because it just doesn't make sense to me. Actually, lately I've been driving vehicle with a little better pickup, but that's not really. I mean, it seems like also would be probably the traffic study of the town center will address if there need to be changes there to market space to keep that open, or to
In front of the lights?
at the church entrance, we'll call it to 117.
We talked about that earlier.
So I think that's a separate discussion.
Yeah, like we recognize that there's some improvements that need to be made to that too as well.
Almost room for.
Hmm?
Is it almost wide enough to put it like a turning? Left turn, wait line, but anyway, that's another discussion.
So other board member questions or comments?
I think this is an excellent first step to resolving this issue. I have to say, I personally have literally almost been run down, and I'm not kidding you, 6 times. With the way it is now, it is absurd. You know, I mean, it's a real crapshoot at times trying to get across there. And, you know, hopefully I have some reasonable judgment as an adult. I worry about the kids with the way that it is now and, you know, the kids' safety. I mean, you know, after the experiences, I was like, oh man, God help us if the 2-year-old toddler gets away from mom, which can happen pretty easily out in the road, and now we've got a real problem. I think this is a really great first step. I do agree with what Hector is saying as far as library, but that's for another discussion. I think this is starting a process of that whole area to get it to a point where we can get some real safety for the residents. And kudos, and I think the work that's been done, job well done.
Does anyone in the audience feel have a comment? Sure.
Hi, Morgan Hillman, 64 Crescent Street. I have a couple of statements and then a question. I'm on the building committee, and Hector, one thing I can say from the plans is that there are elements including a stone wall, of easier pedestrian walkway connecting the common to the library, and delineated parking spots, which are coming in the second point in this conversation, that I think will deter people from parking on that side. Now, that said, people are dumb and they do dumb things, so we can't control that, but I think it will be less car friendly to park on that side, so hopefully it will help reduce that, at least closer to the library building. I don't know about down by the church. I also walk to the library, and the chief knows how strongly I feel about traffic on Crescent Street, and how I am a complete supporter of the safe streets, or whatever that is called, safe to school, because I walk that from my house to the library, and most of it is not on a sidewalk. And it is not well lit at night, among other times, so, you know, that. My question though is, and I guess the final statement, I fully support this as a citizen. My question though is, if we change it to westbound only traffic and you are heading eastbound on 117, are you going to be allowed to make a left turn onto Common Road? And if you are, is there going to be a lane made for that? Or does it mean you're going to back up traffic on 117 while somebody waits to make a left hand?
So,
Turn.
well, that was what your board was asking, and yes, so
Okay.
you're going to be able to make that left, but then also the amount of traffic coming out of Library Hill, I'm sorry, Common Road will be lessened.
Will be less, right,
because
right.
the cars will not be coming down that way, so that
Okay.
that intersection will be open more.
Okay.
And then continuing on with your question, yes, we're gonna be looking at that side of it, because yes, there can be improvements. We've talked about the tree. Everyone knows what, you know, the what is it, the fir tree or whatever that's in the way when you can look. So there's like improvements that can be made.
Okay.
This is just about the direction of the road.
Yeah.
But there's still improvements that can be made.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Great. Okay, we have separate motions on this, or,
We do, should we?
Do you want me to discuss anything
this
about
out.
the second bullet, which taking some feet out of the common?
Yes, please.
sure, so we just have all the discussion and then have the motion at the end?
So I did not put up a slide because quite honestly, it's the plans and it's very difficult to read. But allowing a couple of feet from the common, so the way the common versus the road, it is sort of diagonal, which is why it ranges from 2 feet to 5 feet. It's actually almost 2 feet in front of the library down, and then it gets wider as you get further down because of the direction of the street. But because the front entrance of the library is going to be made with a patio and sidewalks, it will move into where the current street is, sort of altering the road. I don't know which direction that is, south, north, southbound. And so in order to actually have defined parking, we would need to take a couple of feet, which if you look at now, it's all people park up there now. So it would be cleaning up that part of the common, putting a better curbing and actually delineating parking spaces. You know, to Morgan's point, that side will be marked off so that people would naturally not want to park on the other side. There won't be dedicated parking spaces. It would really be up to this group, traffic safety, how far down that goes. We don't need it to continue all the way down. They were proposing that just to make it a smoother line, right down Common Road. But for us, it's the important part at the library piece, from like where the trash dumpster is now to Library Hill is what would be impacted by the project.
So it's the south side
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
17.
where we're driving on it anyway, right?
yes.
Yep.
And actually, in doing that, it doesn't impact any of the existing trees. There's a water spigot there, it will not impact that. It's really where people are driving up on now. It would just be those couple of feet to move it over.
Another question.
Good.
So when we release land that's been acquired as open space, there are processes that have to follow. Does this need to do that? We have to, it's like article, what is it? Article 97 land, is this subject to that?
So I don't believe so. I can double check. I don't see that it's under any protection. It's under just the select board as town property, from what I could find.
Okay. So we don't have to go to the legislature or anything.
That's good, because that's.
That's like it doesn't.
Yes,
So that's
okay.
because
Oh,
it's
sorry.
been, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's because it's been owned by the town for so long. We didn't buy it with open space funds or anything like that.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
So I remember at town meeting when there was the discussion about allowing drive-throughs or not allowing drive-throughs, and somebody suggested taking from the lower common to move the road further south so that there's more room for a drive-through. I'm pretty sure I saw some people sharpening their pitchforks. Because we're taking, it may be under the select board's purview to do it. But I don't think this is something we should vote on without at least getting some feedback from the town people about, what do you think about this? I think it'd be a mistake for us to just go off and take it and not provide some forum for the town people to express their opinion.
Okay,
Megan?
thank you. Sorry, what I am understanding is that literally the amount that we are talking about taking is stuff that people are driving on top of anyway. I don't feel that we need to go to the town for that because it's not like it's not like it's the common and lower village where people are like spending time and whatever. I mean, if people are driving over it, they don't, like, you're not respecting the property anyway, you know what I mean? So I feel like cleaning it up, getting the parking spots in there so that people can see where they're supposed to be parking. That seems like the right move to me. I don't know that it needs to be moved through town meeting. Personally, I think we're talking about 2 feet.
I'm not sure Hector was talking about town meeting.
No, I wasn't.
More-
Or whatever, I don't know. I was asking for
Just a
feedback.
public forum, we thought that was-
I don't know that we need
So
that.
that's my
feedback.
question is when this had a public meeting for the one-way alternative, did it also talk about as part of that? Oh, it didn't. Okay,
Our focus was on the direction of traffic.
okay.
But the
And-
library plans have included this
Mhm.
for some time.
It is, in order to have dedicated parking, we would need so if you
Alright.
don't want to do anything with the common, then there will not be parking. There will not be dedicated parking spaces on Common Road.
My recollection of the plan is that I saw 2 spaces sort of on either side of the memorial with a raised crosswalk in between. That was it. So basically just a couple of spaces. So we're not talking about taking a lot out of the common.
But it is right next to the memorial, and I know people park on it already as it is, and it does take up the property. But I also know that it's public property and people generally like to have an opinion on what's about to happen, even though it makes sense, and it is used as parking. Just the notion of us taking it without talking to the residents first, many residents will get upset about.
But I feel, sorry, I don't wanna like, you can go, cause I spoke and didn't raise my hand.
JT,
I'm actually in agreement with Megan on this. we've discussed this for 10 years. And a lot of these options have all been brought up over the 10-year period of time. I think people have had ample time to express whatever opinions they need. We're talking about 2 feet here, 24 inches. That's already being run over, used, abused, trash I've seen on it. I mean, in that area, it's just like, if anything, this is a beautification of the area because it's going to be defined, it's going to be curbed, it's going to be earmarked, and it's going to be set. In this particular case, as much as I respect public opinion, and many people have approached me and are not afraid to express their opinions, I think this is something we can just move forward with now. Wrap this into the package and really be done with it. And you know what? Let the chips fall where they may. We have a responsibility as a board to kind of move things forward, especially when it deals with the public safety of individuals. And I feel this is part of it.
I just had one more thing. And respectfully, it's on the agenda that we were having this discussion. So if anyone had wanted to weigh in on it, they had more than enough time to send an email to the select board office, to come to the meeting. I know you haven't called for anybody in the thing, but I mean, it's out there. And so I think, to JT's point, we have a responsibility to push things forward where we can. And I don't know that, and there are things that I will suggest holding. I just don't know that this is one of them that we need to do.
And I just wanted to go back to the picture, if I may. So this was the picture I showed at the left. So we're really talking about that dirt strip there is what would be sort of moved over, and a actual, I think, granite curb would be put in place.
So I agree that it's all right to take that land that is being requested, although I feel like the motion isn't very specific as to how far along the road. And so my thought would be that if those 2 to 5 feet were going to go the full length of common road, that feels to me like a larger discussion. And maybe we could modify the motion to be X number of parking spaces or X number of feet. I don't know if that's easy to quantify tonight, but so that the intent of the library project is captured without leaving it really open-ended, so that it feels like it could just be the whole edge of the common there.
If I can just get clarification, where the raised walkway is going to be in front of the library, is it how many parking spaces were going to be put in front of that, and how many behind it?
I think for the plans, it was 2 and 2.
So 4 parking spaces.
Is it possible for you to put that plan on the screen, or is that too much?
To be honest, in all those pages, by the time I download it, I don't know that I would be able to open it up.
Where is the raised walkway going from the memorial?
From the common to the
Okay,
library.
okay.
If you look at this.
Yep.
Right here. This one. And if you look at where Randall Library is.
Yep.
And if you come down to where the white roof is, white part of the roof, that's actually pretty close, I think, to where the raised walkway is going to be. So you would have the 2 in front of that, and then 2 more.
Yeah, so here's the plan, the site plan, and you can see where I'm doing the raised walkway. So it would be sort of 2 spaces here and 2 spaces. Now, that's not to say we couldn't do more, but you don't want to block these cars from coming in and out of these defined spaces.
Right.
So I would say if you're going to,
But this is the memorial.
yes.
Okay.
Well, not really, but that's sort of the,
But that's the
that's the
general
trees.
area.
They're just showing sort of
Okay.
trees there. I think the memorial might be on.
That's the memorial right
Yeah.
there.
So I think if you're gonna modify the motion, you know, you could certainly say to the side parking. I would just make it so that it is a smooth transition. You know, we obviously don't want to go in and then have the road sort of jerk back out.
Yep.
So as long as it's a smooth transition back to common road, so however they need to do that gradually to make it be a straight line for the curb, I think can easily be done.
Any comments from public safety on that?
No, well, I say no, and then I start talking. Exactly what I just did there. You know, the defined spaces, the fact that it's gonna be open more. And then everybody will be parked in the same direction is a big thing, because when you have opposing traffic and people walking, or opposing vehicles parked, that causes potential problems. So I think it's a good thing.
And it's, I guess the smooth transition makes sense.
So people will be parking with the driver's side door on the side and the passenger side door
But
in
everybody
the
will be
flow of
going right.
traffic.
Correct, which they're doing now, even though there's opposing traffic, and they're not supposed to be doing that.
I'm just thinking of kids darting out of the car when as soon as the car stops, if they're on the passenger side.
And again, that's what they're doing now.
Okay.
Legislative intelligence.
A lot of middle school kids who go to the library.
Yeah. Other comments or discussion?
Before we make the first motion,
Sorry, do you? Yep.
Oh, sorry, maybe something from the audience?
Oh, I just have a question.
Can you just say your name for the record?
Kat
Thank you.
Copeland,
Thank you.
a resident, but I also am on the library building committee, so but I'm speaking as a resident. But just a question to Denise, when we put out that to bid process, did that like financially cover the cost of adding parking all the way back to 117?
No,
No, so it stops in the library area.
Yes, I mean, the defined parking stops, like the curbing and the defined parking is really for the library project.
That's
We
fair.
did include the cost of that in the library project budget so that it wasn't then an expense the town had to pick up.
Right, yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure, like, if we had paid for all the way up the street, just, I was curious if that was something.
No.
like that.
But I think this lining out parking spaces is something the highway department could easily do to then reline the rest of the street if we wanted to find parking all the way down.
And I'm in support. And to the comment on like kids getting out of the car and stuff, like hopefully when you have the delineated parking and a crosswalk, there'll be a crosswalk there. There isn't one now. You can encourage your kids to get out onto the lawn, walk down to the crosswalk and cross to get into the library. So, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's.
Do you want me to do an and? Or do you feel like I need to do two motions?
can we make that?
Let's make them through.
Sure.
And on the first motion, will it be, I think it'd be a good idea to specify westbound traffic. Or the one-way. There's a lot of wests mentioned, but not for common road to specifically be a westbound one-way street.
It says westbound to Library Hill Road.
And it should be.
With Route 117 westbound. The westbound applies to the
West.
direction of 117, not to the direction of common road.
You're gonna have to write it down.
Common
Wrap my head around
road.
this.
Let's put the intersection.
I would just add,
117
common road, a
westbound.
one-way street westbound.
Okay,
It
One-way
would
street.
be,
Got it.
will be west of the east entrance.
Yes, that's it. That's in the second half of the motion. She has.
Okay, so
we
west
put
of
that
the
in
east
there.
entrance to the church.
I think it's like better than
I
motion.
knew we were gonna get the east and west.
Glad to be done with this.
are we ready? You
Yes,
ready for
ma'am.
this motion? Great.
Please.
Madam Chair, I move to accept and approve the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee's recommendation to make Common Road a one-way street westbound, west of the intersection with Route 117 westbound to Library Hill Road, and still allowing two-way traffic at the easternmost entrance to the First Parish Church parking area.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Ready?
Thank you all for your time and efforts. It's great.
I do have another motion.
She has to do.
Yep.
I gotta do the second one. Madam Chair, I move to take 2 to 5 feet from the town common to add defined and marked parking on common road up to the proposed side parking with a smooth transition to common road.
Second,
Wait,
Any-
Say that, can,
Sorry, I just realized I wanted to put up to 2 to 5.
you
Right?
take up to 2 to
Okay.
5 feet from north parking on common road.
Up to the proposed side parking with a smooth transition to common.
Which means the 4 parking spaces we've talked.
So those of you know where the dumpster is now.
This comes.
I didn't want to put
Be in the
up to
record.
the old
I
dumpster.
need to understand the
motion.
motion.
Yeah, I think it's so really from Library Hill to the dumpsters at the library is really the length of road that we're talking about. She was
I was
phrasing
trying
it
to
nicely.
snip it a little nicer, but I definitely could put the old dumpster that is up. Okay, ready?
Dumpster staying in that location.
5 years
Side
from now,
parking
that
is the
dumpster
dumpster.
won't be there and we'll be going,
And then we'll be, yeah, I know. Okay,
all right,
ready?
hold on. Does this have a scale? No, it does not have a scale. How wide is Great Road?
Common road.
Great Road,
Ray Road,
which part of it?
what was that, 24 feet? Yeah, 24. A little more, 27.
Oh, so when I'm saying 2 to 5, I think it's just,
No, she wants no distance.
approximately 100 feet.
Oh,
Can we say that? Would that make sense?
Plus or minus.
to.
Yeah.
So there we go. Up to 100 feet.
Give or take.
Approximately.
No, approximately.
Approximately, wow.
We think maybe, but not on alternate Tuesdays.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again.
Is that square feet or linear?
Cubic,
Ready?
yes.
Madam Chair. I move to take up to 2 to 5 feet from the town common to add defined and marked parking on common road. Approximately 100 feet with a smooth transition to common road.
For a distance of
For a
approximately
distance of approximately
100 feet.
100 feet.
And then I hate to do this, but I just want to say, ensuring that all legislative requirements are met.
Okay,
That's great.
So that, because you said you weren't sure and you would check, and I just want to make sure that that's. Okay, now read it one more time.
Well, and I'm gonna add one more thing.
Okay.
Because it's the minutes, if you can say from Library Hill for a distance of approximately 100
Yes,
feet,
very
so we
good.
can define what 100 feet we're referring
I
to.
like it.
Okay.
East on the south one.
anybody else?
From the south outside.
Anybody else? Okay.
Oh my God.
Madam Chair. I move to take up to 2 to 5 feet from the town common to add defined and marked parking on common road from Library Hill Road for a distance of approximately 100 feet with a smooth transition to common road, ensuring that all legislative requirements are met.
Second,
Any further discussion? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Hi.
That's
Oh my
unanimous.
God.
That-
No, I don't
that
think
is- That is,
I'm opposed.
there's,
Oh, did you oppose it?
For
Oh,
and-
sorry,
and
you
one
didn't
opposed.
call it.
You didn't call, you have to call it.
You have to say
right.
any opposed.
any post.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great.
So unusual.
Yes,
You got that.
I know.
Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you.
I know. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're not going anywhere, we still have some more stuff for you.
You got wellness, don't ya?
Is it that?
So if you,
we should
if
go back
you'd
to
like
it.
to take, no, why don't you take the police stuff while they're still here?
It's okay. Hi. Madam Chair. I also want to know what an exercise page is.
Did you bring a picture?
First things first.
No, I didn't bring it.
It's like a rogue machine, if you do like a CrossFit or pull-ups,
Oh, okay.
muscle ups, stuff like that.
Yep.
Great.
So which one are we doing first? The donation or?
Do the wellness program.
So we started about 10 months ago. I came from the board to add in a wellness program. The officers have, not all of them, but a lot of them have been taking part in it, to, being able to work out on duty. And what we found was that the 30 minutes, they just weren't, it wasn't enough, because like by the time they change, before and after, they were only getting maybe 15, 20 minutes of workout in. So they asked if it could be bumped up to 60 minutes. The lieutenant here takes part in that, and she can talk more about that.
It's basically the industry standard across the board. Some of the guys are even working out in uniforms, and I don't know if you know, like that's like, not a fun time. So it gives them time to, take a shower. It gives them a good 45-minute workout. It's good for mental health. It's good for just keeping our officers in shape. And like the chief said, I do it every single day, as long as there's enough people on. I think it's important. We are moving all the time, so to keep us in shape, it's a great benefit to the men and women of the agency.
Sometimes like they do sit in those cars for a while, and like we want them to move. So we don't want like injuries. Like if you go from, if you have to act fast, and like it's just like sitting on a plane, you don't want to sit on a plane for a long period of time. So you want your body limber and ready to go. And so I think it's helpful. We haven't, I'm not gonna say it, so but
Don't say it.
yeah, don't say it. But again, the only thing changing in the policy is the time. Again, they can't, if they're working by themselves, they can't take part in this. If they're busy on calls, they can't like take part in this. That like policing comes first. So that and there has to be adequate coverage to make sure that the town is remain safe. So that none of the stuff has changed, and we haven't. No police services in the past 10 months have been affected at all by this program.
And I can tell you, the officers come in and they kind of say, okay, who wants to take this time, this time, this time? So it's kind of worked out when everybody comes in on shift. So it works out really well.
And it's not just the officers too, we actually allow in the dispatchers too. So, because they're just sitting at a desk, literally like 8 hours, so.
Great, question?
Yeah, I have to ask the uncomfortable question. So this is eligible for those that are doing an 8 or 8+ shift.
8
or 8+ shift,
Yeah.
as opposed to anything. It says less than 8 hours.
We have 4-hour shifts.
So if they're doing a 4-hour shift, they're not eligible for this.
Right.
I see. Okay.
But they can go in after their.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So the facility, the second part of our request tonight, add more equipment, but
Yeah.
but the gym at the station is open for the officers at any time before or after. We're just trying to encourage them more to use it. So, but we do have 4-hour shifts. So that's a 4-hour shift. They don't get to benefit from this.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That was an uncomfortable question.
I don't know. Whenever you challenge the police.
Are you ready for?
Yes, please.
A motion. Madam Chair, I move to approve a change to the 9.05 wellness program for the police department as requested by Police Chief Michael Solisi.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Yes. Thank you very much. And then we'll go to the next one.
Yeah, please.
We were approached by a resident, Rob Webster. He sent me a letter and a photo and just saying, and I should have put it on the packet, but just basically donating it's a workout exercise cage. It is valued over $50, so we have to get it approved by the select board if we want to take any sort of donation over that.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we do things, transparent and right. Estimated cost on this one, I think is $250 to $400. Our wellness officer went down and they were able to look at it. It's in good condition. It's not like we're not taking someone else's badge. Thank you. Yep, and so it would be used. Our officers have already made plans, if accepted, to use one of their own personal pickup trucks and go down and pick it up and bring it and set it all up. And they're just waiting for the okay. And we had, like I said, last year we had another resident at the time, or 2 years ago, was Dave Gogan, donated a bunch of his stuff. And that's how we're just been slowly getting donations, and we're purchasing some new stuff too for him. But it's donations help.
Yeah. Great. Any questions, comments? Motion?
Madam Chair, I move to accept the donated workout exercise cage from Robert Webster for the Stow Police Department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
It's unanimous.
Thank
Thank you very much.
much.
Thank you very much for all the support.
All right, have a
Thank
great
you
day.
for all your work.
Thank you. Treadmill.
Steve Kelly.
Good to see everybody.
I was like, huh, maybe I could get some rid of some things. All right.
Okay, let's spend some money.
We should go back to Denise.
Actually, we have to go back.
Oh, we have to go back.
Let's-
But we do have people here for the library. But
Um,
Grant, is that what you're here for?
For the whole meeting.
Oh, okay, then have
Well,
fun.
that
Good.
This is, we're not gonna reorganize it. for the agenda anymore.
Settled into the night.
Like government in action.
Kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's discuss the town administrator's performance evaluation. As necessary. Vote to ratify it. Any comments or questions?
Good point.
I had a comment and I feel like I would be remiss if I did not point this out because I saw it pointed out a couple of different times. And I've been trying to figure out a way to verbalize it. Because I think that overall it was a very positive review, and I think that Denise should be very proud of herself for this. The couple of negative nitpicking bits really referred to this idea that she doesn't know how to take criticism, which I don't think is fair. I think that the idea that she has an opinion about a question about a decision that she's making should not be like a negative reflection on her. And I don't think it would be a negative reflection on every member. I think that it really stuck in my craw as I will say, as a woman who has to go through performance reviews, where it feels like sometimes we're not afforded that kind of luxury of
Having
an opinion. And so to me, I just want to put it out there because I don't know that that was anyone's intention. But to me, it was like, just as a woman who's had to go through these things, it felt a little like it wouldn't have been that way with everyone, or with anyone else. So that's on my only comment. I don't know who had those comments. I'm not trying to have a discussion about it necessarily. It's just, it was something that kind of jumped out to me. Like, I think she should be allowed to have an opinion like about these things. So, okay. That's all.
Yep, I have my own comments and it's basically following the same vein that Megan is. When I read it and stuff, actually more than just stuck in my craw. To sit and say that if someone points out she has wrong information or may have to come to the wrong conclusions, she isn't as receptive as she could be and could be more open to the possibility that a mistake may have been made. I don't know where this comment came from. I guess all I can say is it really upset me because I've never seen any empirical evidence of this. In my personal dealings with Denise, and we've had discussions, I can have strong opinions, Denise can have strong opinions, and we can be coming from different points of view. Doesn't necessarily mean that our information is incorrect. Maybe the information might be incomplete, but I can also tell you that if I brought information in which she was not aware of, I have never, ever, ever found her to not be receptive. And to make a statement like that, yeah, I'd like to see some empirical evidence of a situation, because I've also been there and I've sat there and not said anything and seen Denise deal with other individuals, both employees as well as other board members, and have her opinions. And if something was brought up that in fact had been changed or something else, or that she was not aware of, I never found her to not be open or receptive. So yeah, I do take issue with a comment like that, because I think that's a serious statement to be made, which lends itself to, quite frankly, our former town administrator. And I don't find her that way at all. I mean, our former town administrator, I witnessed that man bully and beat people to the point that they would leave that office in absolute tears because they were so intimidated. So I absolutely disagree 100% with that statement. I'm not even sure that I would ratify this review with that statement in it, quite frankly.
I'm the one that made the statements. I have personal experience with these instances. I'm not gonna go into them because I don't think it's the place to go into them. When I was younger in my career, I've had those statements made to me. I would have made the same statements to Wrigley, because you're right, the guy was a bully, I thought. And I've had experiences with him and said as much. But yes, I made those statements. I think Denise does a great job overall, but she's not perfect. And like I said, those statements are based on personal experience, but I don't want to go into the details of them.
I appreciate that. Sorry, may I speak?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Okay. I appreciate that you said that. I think the line that really stuck out to me, it really rang as a little, what's the word I want to say? So the line that bothered me was, at times it is clear she does not like having her decisions questioned, but she is learning to accept that it is a normal part of running a town. And to me, that discounts the 20+ years that she has had in municipal government. That says to me, well, you know, she's here now and she's the town administrator, and you know, you got to understand this is what it's like running a town. And it is so offensive to me, because it feels like it fully discounts all of the work that she has done in her decades of municipal government, to say, well, now she knows what it's like to have to run a town. And so that, to me, it really bothered me. And so I think I've said my piece, but that really did bother me. Sure. Siri's yelling at me. All right, I'm done.
So there's also statements in here, she listens to alternative points of view and adjusts her positions based on new data and information. There's a lot of statements. There was another one I just found that countered that. And anytime there's a review with 5 different individuals, there's going to be different points of view. I think the fact that there's some statements like the one that's stuck in various people's craws, as well as these others that are positive about. There was one in here. Denise is incredibly approachable and available to answer questions, yada, yada. I'm trying to find the one I was just looking at when we were talking. But so there's two positions on that, and I don't agree. I haven't witnessed what Hector has, but I can't discredit what Hector wrote, right? So, because I don't think you would have written that if it hadn't been something you experienced, you know, and I have not. It sounds like other members of the board have not experienced that. And so some of these comments reflect the other point of view from the sentence that you wrote. So, bottom line, I mean, I'd like to hear your opinion about it. Bottom line, it's an incredibly good review. And the positive really shines through. Yes, there were a couple things that when I read them, I said, oh, that's kind of odd. But, you know, let's see. Here's another one. She does not allow her opinions to sway her. Oh, no, that's different. Outside of that, that's not the one I was looking for. But anyway, I think we've all had really positive experience with Denise. We're all really happy. I personally think there's trust, and where there's trust, there's progress. Things move forward. And I don't think that those sentences are reflective of lack of trust. I think they're just an experience that may have happened there. So I remember when we did this review last year, and it was just the most meeting I've ever been to. And I don't know that we need to go there with this one, and we had to have that review rewritten. I think this has as many positive comments on that specific point as negative, so that when you have 5 people doing a review, I'm repeating myself. I don't believe we need to rewrite this. I would like Denise's opinion, if you don't mind sharing your opinion on that. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Do you have an opinion that you would like to express?
Well, naturally, I have an opinion. No, I mean, obviously, I'm very pleased. It's, I mean, a 4.9 out of 5. I really couldn't get much better. You know, do I agree with everything? No. And some of it, I know it's personal feelings and I know where it comes from. And I'm not saying it comes from board members here, but there's a comment in here that I know exactly who it's from. And to me, it's a personal opinion. What I am disappointed about is that my score under personal development and understands the role was lower, because I feel like those are some of my highest categories. I mean, personal development, I'm in every association that the state offers, and I feel like I've continued my personal development as much as I think I possibly could. So I was a little taken aback that those were the 2 categories that had the lowest rating out of all of them. But, I had said to the chair that, I don't need to go through it all. We don't need to do what we did last year. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the very positive responses that you all had. I'm fine with the review as it stands. Again, I don't agree with all of it, but I wouldn't agree with all of it anyways. Just the nature of, as you said, 5 people responding. So I appreciate the effort you all put into writing this.
And I think, as uncomfortable as it may be to disagree, that it's very important to have everybody's opinion shown as part of the document. And we're all just people here doing stuff together. So I don't think it's meant to be seriously injurious. It's a process. And I hope that if it's done with respect and taken with respect, that we can accept it. I don't disagree with any of the comments. And I also think that Denise deserves the very high marks that she's gotten. Hector?
I would also like to add that I agree. I think Denise deserves the high marks that she's gotten. And some of these positive statements that many have enjoyed, were also written by me. So I hope that's taken into consideration.
Well, if I mean, I think naturally, I mean, based on the average point readings, it couldn't have been all bad because, you know, I mean, there were several categories that it was just a 5.0. So, and I did. So that's why I said to Courtney, to me, it's not worth, I mean, I appreciate having the conversation. It's certainly not worth what we went through last year because you are entitled to your opinion. But because the ratings, I feel like the ratings are more what I go by. I mean, the verbiage is something I can take into consideration, but you know, the rankings I felt were much more positive and across the board because of the way the average came out. So, I mean, I think that was clear that, and I don't see the individual reports. So, I think it's clear that everybody sort of had the same general idea, just had different opinions here and there.
It's such a human exercise. Reviews. I mean,
Well, and they're not normally done by committee.
That, I wish there was some way.
More in
to-
public.
Or in public. I mean, this is
Public.
the worst part of it, right? Like normally you have one person.
I would love that for my.
Talked about that. I don't-
It's in the charter or something?
Yeah.
No,
It's under the open meeting law.
Yeah.
It's because you're a board of 5 and I answer to you.
the
So
board
this is
has
the
to-
process they came up with, is a summary is what goes public.
Overall, you're great.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I agree.
In many, many ways, you are great. Tony the Tiger used to say that.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
May I make-
yes, please.
Okay, fantastic. Madam Chair, I move to approve the town administrator performance evaluation as presented at this meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that is unanimous.
Great.
Okay, we'll go back to being in order.
Now we can spend money.
Now we can spend money.
Well,
Not spending. money.
I spend money.
No, we're looking actually to get money.
Yes.
No, we can spend it.
So may I? So we've been talking about this, the library building committee. We've been working with the Green Advisory Committee. The state puts forward up to $500,000 decarbonization grant on an annual basis. Because we are going to a fully sustainable building, we are checking off all the boxes that are required. As you know, we are a green community. We have adopted the stretch code. We adopted the specialized code. The board passed municipal buildings, fossil fuel free policy. So our feeling is we have an excellent chance of being awarded something in this grant. We met a few weeks ago, myself, Tina, Arnie Epstein, and our design team folks with our green committee advisor from the state to go through the grant. And she gave us some information on what we need. We are not finished compiling all the data. It's a very lengthy process, but two of the requirements is that the CEO of the town authorizes us to actually apply for the grant. So there's one form that would have Courtney sign that just says, yes, we're submitting this on behalf of the town. And then one of the requirements of the grant is the town is responsible to pay for 25%, a match 25%. So if we look at with the library project, just the cost of upgrading the HVAC system to a fully electric system, it's about $860,000. The grant is 500,000, our 25% is about 200,000. We're putting in obviously 333 just on that piece. So we've more than covered the 25% match. The second document over there is just a letter saying we have the 25% match. Again, I do feel we're in a very good shape to receive something. Our goal is the full 500,000. We really do feel that we meet all the criteria. We're working with our engineers right now to get all the necessary documentation. And applications are submitted the week of the 16th. So the 16th to the 20th of this month is when we have to upload all of our documentation and our grant, and then wait to see if we get it.
How long does it take?
So I think I don't, as I said, that's December.
Wow.
It's you have to do one of these, pre-apply, so you have to submit a letter of intent so that they can actually accept you into the grant program, which we did. And then now the application. So Arnie, as our green as our energy manager, is the point person through the state, so he will be the one to actually upload all of our documentation when he comes back from his vacation. But he's actually taking calls while he's on vacation to make sure that this stays on track. So we're all sort of committed to getting this application in. I will say the one downside is if we do get this, we are prohibited from applying next year for a Green Communities grant. And in the past, we've used it for things like a piece of a police vehicle. We did like the HVAC system in here. It's been small money considering. We've never had anything that has reached the $500,000 level. So as a discussion item, we said, well, this is worth, if we can get 500,000, we can skip the 16,000 next year. We can certainly fund that another way. So our goal would be the whole 500,000. So the vote tonight is to authorize Courtney to sign a letter in the document saying that we are applying for this grant formally.
No questions?
Ready for motion?
Yep.
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the chair to execute an application for up to a $500,000 Green Communities competitive grant for the library project.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay,
Thank you and good luck.
yeah.
Yes.
Now this next one, boy. Go for it.
Yeah, so let's see, we have a letter from in the packet, just closed by mistake.
May I assist you?
Please.
So the Mass Select Board Association reached out through the chair to see, so the Healy Driscoll administration put out a call a couple of months ago looking for feedback. They want to do a listening tour. They want to solicit feedback from the 351 municipalities to figure out what needs to change, what needs to be streamlined, updated, etc. They've reached out to all different groups, the Mass Chief, Select Board, the small towns, the managers, so on and so forth. I included in the packet a copy of the letter I submitted on behalf of the small town administrator group, just so that you could see the kinds of things that we've all been discussing. But I know there are probably topics that you all have had frustration with, you know, that you may want to weigh in on. They did extend the deadline for certain groups that did not get a letter in by the original deadline. The deadline for the Select Board Association is Friday. So Courtney and I talked and we said we put it on there. If anyone wants to formulate any discussion items, I'm happy to send it into the Select Board Association for their consideration for submission into their letter. But it was just to give you guys an opportunity to throw out ideas if you wanted to.
Madam Chair,
Yes, JT.
I have a couple of items on this.
We do not. Oh, I think those lists.
Go for
Okay.
I. On a serious note, from chapter 32, section 15, pension forfeiture.
Oh,
I am on a rampage, and I really am. I am outraged at this point that the taxpayers of this town are paying the full pension and life insurance for the rest of their lives. An individual who stole $140,000 from this town admitted in court she stole it. And she still gets to keep her pension, and we still pay for her health insurance. We have a former chief of police who was caught in a pedophilia sting, who still gets his pension, and we still pay for his health insurance. There really is something wrong with this, for this to allow to happen. Okay, to me, this is unconscionable. It is appalling that the taxpayers are footing a bill for a potential pedophile and an admitted thief. So, yeah, I'd like to see something put in about that, to change that, specifically for the pension forfeiture. Because I really feel the way that it is written right now, it has to absolutely be a guilty plea in a court of law. And even if it's a guilty plea, do you realize that the pension board still does not have to not grant them their pensions? That's absurd. And I guarantee it's not just our town that deals with this. I can guarantee you that there are others who, in other towns, who've had situations and we're still paying out the pensions. So yeah, I do feel that is one thing that we need to really address. To look at that and to change it. The exact wording on it, I haven't figured out because I haven't calmed down enough to sit down and really think about it. Because
that goes.
listen, every time I think about it, my blood pressure goes up about 150 points. Especially being former law enforcement. The second thing I would like to see for smaller towns is better access to the MEMA funds. It's a pretty convoluted process. There's got to be an easier way for us to be able to access those funds when they're needed. We as a small town, I mean, we don't have the staff and we don't have the resources that a Boston, a Worcester, the larger municipalities have. We just don't have it. So there's got to be an easier pathway. Those are the two things that I thought of to send out to Healy Driscoll.
Great.
That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
Can you explain the comment about the MEMA funds? Because I'm not familiar with that.
MEMA funds cover a wide range of things, a lot of times with issues of disaster response, all of that stuff that we have to deal with. And even if we're eligible for the funds, the process is arduous at best. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean,
No, you're correct. I mean, I think one of the issues with small towns is a lot of times the damages don't rise to the threshold that MEMA sets for states of emergency or disaster relief. And that's something that, more Western Mass struggles with a lot, flooding. They don't reach the threshold and then there's no money. And towns like us or smaller towns, we don't have a lot of cash just sitting around that we can pay for. Like if God forbid something that like Leominster happened here, we wouldn't have the capital to replace the roads and while we wait for a reimbursement. So I think that that's your point.
it is, and even if we did qualify, the process is.
It takes years to get MEMA money back. It really does. It's even when there's declared snow disasters and blizzards, like the winter of 2016, it was like a good 18 months after the fact that towns were getting reimbursed the emergency relief funding, because it's a very detailed process. You go back and forth with representatives, they come out, they go through a detailed spreadsheet, receipts. It's a lot of work. And it takes a long time, so that we're fronting the money in hopes of recovering some of it back through relief.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point. Both of them.
I wasn't sure, but was there something in your letter about making online meetings a permanent part of the open meeting laws?
So for the small town administrators, we would like it to be a local choice. We would like the open meeting law to include hybrid capability, but then, so the current legislation right now is focused on permanent hybrid for every meeting across the board. And we have fought back that that's just not feasible. We have committees that, first of all, we don't have staffing to run hybrid meetings. So we would like it to be a permanent choice of in-person, online, fully, or hybrid. And let each local board or committee decide what the best format is. So for us, it's all about the options in the law.
So that's what that last paragraph.
That's what that last part is, give us, because the current legislation, and I may have told you this, I testified at the legislative hearing a few months ago when they were proposing making it fully hybrid all the time. Because it just doesn't work for small towns. Even as it is, we have 20 Zoom licenses and it's not enough. If we needed to start having every meeting hybrid, it's too difficult on volunteers to have to manage. I know how it is for me to manage this setup. To have volunteers have to worry about who's online, who's in front of you, what the board's doing. So that's what that section is just letting us have a choice.
The only other item.
Go ahead.
Haven't seen what we recently went through with the school building committee and the MSBA funding. any way to make the MSBA funding more accessible, especially if they are using 5-year-old numbers. And even though they have up-to-date numbers, we can't appeal it. Otherwise, we have to wait 10 to 15 years that's ridiculous.
Okay.
Megan?
No.
I also liked your comments, the second to last item in your letter, the Municipal Building Assistance Authority, where municipal buildings might get some kind of support, for instance, our town hall. You know, another way, and there was, I was quite interested also in, where did I see that? There was a mention of in some case, the rural factor. Was that it? It was something where, in some cases, they might waive the requirement for the prevailing wage to reduce the cost of, I mean, I think the town hall might also have been an instance where if that project were a lower price, we would have done it, and it was really stuck at that price tag because of prevailing wage requirements.
I always wondered prevailing wage, why they call it that, because it's always way higher than the prevailing wage.
Well, and especially for us, I mean, we're close enough to Boston that we're looking at union contracts in the city. I mean, that's not prevailing wage to us. You know, so the cost that we pay an electrician to come and replace a ballast or something is ridiculous versus what we normally would pay, because we're taking in those city contracts into consideration. The whole procurement area needs to be revamped. And I am happy to say I got a letter last week from the Inspector General's office that they are looking, and the IG himself is actually supporting changes to procurement. And looking to raise the thresholds of formal bidding versus quotes. Because it's, especially at the cost of living now, everything's requiring 3 formal quotes, which is just taking time, it's adding cost, it's adding, you know, so to raise those thresholds. Currently, you know, we're under 25,000. The schools, it's 100,000. And we've been asking all, like, why is the school of all places who have one line item budget allowed to just have those thresholds? So they're looking to make it more equitable between municipal and school purchasing. Because they couldn't justify why one industry was higher than the other. But that will help out, you know, just getting projects done and getting some work done. It won't address the prevailing wage, and they have not mentioned that, but that's something we will continue to advocate for, and I'll put it on your list for submission.
My motion is just I move.
Move the paper.
Well, because I don't know what you were moving, so.
I don't know what we're moving.
I have 5 items, 32B, section 15. There needs to be better accountability for the taxpayers when there's an egregious infraction with the plea deal or continue without a finding through the courts. Is sort of how I summarized it initially. Better access to MEMA funds, too convoluted for small towns to access the money when needed and too much paperwork is required. MSBA funding should be more accessible and equitable based on current prices. Municipal Building Authority to offer support for non-historic municipal buildings that need to be renovated or rebuilt. And I add non-historic because if you fall under historic categories, then you can use community preservation money to restore your historic buildings. And address prevailing wage and the inequities of rural communities are the 5 items I just jotted down.
Are you going to be submitting those to the administration in a letter?
No,
Or
it
is
goes
the
to the
way-
Select Board Association.
Oh,
And then
okay.
they choose what items that they'll support as
I
a
see.
group.
So am I moving that you are submitting this information to the Select Board Association?
Yes, or Courtney, if you want to, whatever you'd like, but yes.
No. Do you want to submit it to them or do you want Denise to do it?
I'd be happy if Denise would do it.
Okay, then yes, you may do that.
Okay, great. Select Board Association?
Yes, Mass Select Board Association.
Oh, right. Okay. Madam Chair, are you ready? Madam Chair, I move that Denise submit our feedback bullet points to the Massachusetts Select Board Association.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Where are we?
Discuss residential tax exemption.
Yeah. Okay, I have a friend in Concord who was telling me how excited she was because they've just implemented a tax exemption in Concord. And I was curious and discussed it with Denise, and Denise found some supporting information, which you may have seen in the packet. It's a big topic. If we're too tired, we could possibly push it off to another.
So I would just add, we do have our assessor on.
Oh, right.
I think if you do plan to push it off, I would just let her have a few moments since she has been on here the whole meeting.
Absolutely.
Well,
I'd actually love to hear from her, from Kristen. Thank you for waiting for hours for this moment.
No problem, no problem. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so just in brief, so the residential exemption has been around since 1979. It's not something new. It's actually something that I discuss at every classification hearing. I tend to gloss over it because we are not a typical community that would grant something like this. So residential exemptions are usually granted by two types of communities, those that are seasonal, like the Cape, and those that have very large apartment or rental bases like Boston and Cambridge. So what it essentially does is it creates a higher tax rate for only the residential class, and everybody pays the higher rate. However, properties that fall below the break-even point can have a portion of their residential value exempted from taxation, which is why the rate goes up, because you are using a lower residential value to calculate the tax rate. So basically, anyone who doesn't live in Stow year-round, or those who are assessed above the break-even point, pay a higher tax bill than the people who are under the break-even point and live here year-round. So that's kind of the summation of it. I can tell you most homes in Stow are owner occupied. We have 8 confirmed second homes. We also have 6 apartment buildings. 3 of them are 40B affordable apartments. So, you know, that being said, is it a good idea? I don't know. That's something that the select board needs to decide. I guess at this point, you have to ask yourself, you know, what do you think you can achieve by granting a residential exemption, and what's the outcome? Because I want to stress, every time we grant an exemption, a discount, or even an abatement, somebody else pays for it. And you have to understand the consequences of someone else paying for it and how many people you're basically going to impact. So that's kind of the long and short of it, basically. I don't know if anyone has any questions or.
Denise.
Kristen, could you just explain what the current break-even point is so the board's aware?
Yeah, so based on fiscal year 23 data, which is the most obviously complete year that we have, the break-even point was $621,750 in assessed value. The fiscal 23 tax rate was $1,813 per thousand. If we had adopted a 20% residential exemption, the tax rate would have been $22.26 for everybody. But if you qualify for the exemption, you would get $115,356 of your value exempted from that. So if your home is assessed for $300,000, $115,000 has a much greater impact than if you're assessed at 1.1 million and you're only getting $115,000 of that exempted from your property. So the lower end properties would save maybe an average of $300 or $400, and the higher properties could pay as much as maybe $2,500 to $3,000 a year more, especially, you know, if you're at the lake where the values are already pretty high, you know what I mean? So.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, are there any other questions I can answer or?
Denise?
So Kristen, you and I spoke about special legislation that Lancaster is looking into for seniors only. Could you maybe touch upon that?
Yeah, so I mean, if your goal is to provide tax relief, you know, to the seniors, there's several things you can do. I mean, Harvard and Lancaster have what's called an elderly and disabled taxation fund, where on the top of your bill is an optional checkoff box, and you can donate money to the elderly and disabled taxation fund. And when they have enough money in that fund, they can accept applications and divvy that up based on need. There's also something called a means tested senior exemption. However, like Denise said, that does require special legislation. Someone has to write a bill and has to be submitted to become law, because currently the senior means tested exemption is not a statute that's currently in place that we can just adopt locally. That's why every city and town that has it has to actually go before the legislature and get it approved. And it's a process. I think it takes probably a couple years, you know, from start to finish, but ultimately, you know, I mean, it's definitely a lot of tax relief. So, I mean, both of those things have been discussed in the past. The problem was nobody wanted to spearhead either the elderly and disabled fund or the means tested. So, and, you know, it's been brought up at previous classification hearings, both things. And, you know, it's always been the assessor's point of view that, you know, we don't like to get involved with discretionary funds. So we didn't want to have any part in the elderly and disabled taxation fund. And then obviously, you know, writing a bill to become a law is a little kind of above what we do. So we wouldn't, obviously, you know, someone would have to help out with that, whether it be town council or someone, but I'm not sure what other towns do. I'm pretty sure town councils are the ones that spearhead that. So.
The reason I brought it up is because we just passed an expensive school project. And I wanted to explore if there were any ways to give relief to the citizens that were the most concerned about the raise in their taxes. And that's it.
Can I ask or make a quick comment? Kristen, is there any way you can touch on the exemptions that are currently available to residents under military or military spouse or any of those? My only concern with exploring, and I hear you about this, my only concern about exploring this or doing something with it is that there are exemptions out there already. And so if we then, you know, put the tax burden on I don't know how to say, but Kristen, if you could speak to the ones that are already out there. I think the other thing is I don't know that people understand that there are exemptions out there that they may be available or eligible for that.
Yes, we have several, you know, exemptions out there. We have exemptions for veterans. The only caveat with that is there has to be some level of disability that is, you know, related to their service. We have exemptions for people who are legally blind. We have exemptions for surviving spouses. We have for surviving children. We have senior exemptions, which, you know, one of them is called 17D. The other one is called 41C. The problem with the state exemptions that the base amounts haven't been changed probably since maybe the 80s. And in fiscal 19, I brought articles to town meeting to add the cost of living adjustment to the income and asset limits for 41C, and to add the cost of living adjustment to the exemption amount itself for 17D. When I first started in Stow, I think the 17D exemption amount was $150 a year, and adding the cost of living, we're now up to over $400. So it's slowly getting up there. I think that's why a lot of cities and towns are trying to implement the means tested, because it's kind of a workaround against the very low state exemptions that are already in place. And 41C is the highest one that we offer. You can get up to $2,000 a year off your taxes, but the income and asset limits are so low, you have to be pretty destitute to qualify. And to be honest with you, the people that do qualify in town, I don't know how they're living. So, I mean, it's really low. So.
Yeah, I mean,
But again, these options are all, everything's on our website. Council on Aging has a list of all the exemptions. Every time we update it, we share it with them, and Allison's great at putting it in the newsletter and getting it out there, and she'll send people to us all the time that she thinks might qualify. So, and we also have the community preservation surcharge exemption. So that's based on HUD income limits, and I think it's somewhere around 80-something thousand a year. If you make less than that, you can get the CPA surcharge completely removed from your bill. So we do have programs in place. Unfortunately, you know, Stow is a town where the average tax bill is becoming so high that these exemptions aren't making a dent in it. So that's the issue.
it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have someone online with their hand up.
Yes,
Trish C.
Trish C, would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
Hi, I just wanted to follow up on some things that Kristen said. She mentioned that really when you implement something like this, when you take away from one, you add it to someone else. And so I'm opposed to it for that reason. I think we all know that the town, 90+% of the revenue that the town receives is from residential assessments. And really, I think we know that that has to be addressed before anything else. If some business were to come to town or some other opportunities for revenue. But as she also mentioned, the Elderly and Disabled Taxation Aid Committee, which Harvard has, and that's something that's voluntary. I think that would be a good start for the town to look at that. It's, from what I could see, it's just a couple of meetings a year. And when I talked to Kristen last week, she had mentioned that there was a conversation about this years ago and then it didn't move forward. So it would be nice to see that as an option. And the other thing that this does when you also shift the burden is there's not an incentive for people to get out to vote. Frankly, we saw that with the last election. Well, there was less than 30% of residents got out to vote. So if you want to impact your taxes, you get out and vote. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Yes.
I think if it's the board's goal to focus on our senior population, Kristen and I could certainly look at the means exemption, the elderly means exemption, and see what type of legislation has been implemented in other communities. As she mentioned, it's a lengthy process because anytime you enact special legislation, it's a lengthy process. But I'm confident that we could reach out to Representative Hogan. She could support it for us and assist us through the process. But if that's something the board wants to have a more in-depth discussion about just that piece, we can come up with some examples of other communities and give you an idea of what that would look like. Again, someone else would have to still pay for that. So we are still shifting a burden to other taxpayers in town. But it would address the concern that our seniors are being priced out of the community.
I think that would.
I like that idea.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do too.
I will say this. I'm interested in as long as the burden that's being shifted doesn't become so great that it then forces families with, people with kids. I mean, comments that I heard of the $1,500 increase for the new high school was not just from seniors.
Right.
There were 6 families that specifically spoke to me and said, if this goes through, we cannot afford to stay. It voted through, and I am not kidding. There are 6 for sale signs up. This is a big picture situation that I think a lot of towns are facing now. I have to say from way back when, I was not in favor of the present system that we have for schools. Because I knew when they said it's gonna be cheaper, that was not gonna be the case. And it's not. I absolutely feel we need to do something for seniors, there's no question. The exemptions we have right now, even if they qualify for everyone, are so. You know, minuscule compared to the tax bills that are coming out now. So I don't have an issue at all, and I am actually in favor of the senior means. I just really want to make sure that if we implement something like this, that we're not swinging the pendulum so far to the other side.
So JT, I just want to kind of explain something real quick that might put this in better perspective for you. So granting the residential exemption raises the tax rate for everybody like maybe $2 or $3, whereas if you fund the means tested exemption through the tax rate, it's usually 1 or 2 pennies higher than what it normally would be. I know Harvard always has a residential rate that's maybe 2 cents higher than the commercial industrial rate. And the reason for that is because they have the means tested, and that's how they fund it, is through the tax rate versus the overlay. Because when you fund it through the overlay, you have to be pretty specific about how much money you're going to put in there, because you're going to be giving it out. Whereas if you fund it through the tax rate, you know, there's no worrying about, did we put enough money in? Did we overestimate? Did we underestimate? So that's just to give it a little perspective. I think, you know, the shift isn't as great with something like the means tested versus a residential exemption, which changes the rate for absolutely everybody. So.
Oh, all right. That helps.
Kristen, so you know, with the town of Concord, they had to bring on a consultant and additional staff to implement the residential exemption. Would you see any need to increase resources with the means exemption? Because there is
I'm not sure. I don't think so, because the problem with the residential exemption is that anybody that's residential can apply for it. You don't necessarily have to be below the break-even point. Like I said, you would just get a smaller amount of money off your taxes. Running numbers, that would probably be about 2,700 applications a year for the assessors to vet and go through. Whereas the means tested for seniors would probably, you know, maybe if we have 50 seniors getting it now, they would probably all apply for it, because you can get, the rule is right now you can only get one exemption. You can get a veterans and a CPA, or a 17D and a CPA, but you can't get a veterans and a 41C. So there's one exemption. The CPA is not really an exemption, it's a surcharge, it's not tax, it's different. But with the means tested, it is my understanding that you can still get your regular exemptions as well as the means tested. So, you know, this ends up being sometimes, I mean, we ran some numbers preliminary in our office, and, you know, depending on what level of means tested they adopt, what percentage, you know, people could get up to maybe $4,000 a year off their taxes, which is a huge help compared to what we offer now, so.
Sorry, I had questions. No, I just was curious about the timeline implementation. Did you put that together, Kristen, in this packet? Concord. From Concord.
No, so timeline, so let's just say hypothetically, the board discussed it, you came up with parameters. I mean, the nice thing with the special legislation is it's, you know, you can sort of define the parameters based on what the legislature has approved in other communities. But let's say we have something ready for spring town meeting. You know, then it goes through the legislation. So, you know, potentially it could be right January 1st, 2025. That it's available depending on when and if it's approved and if it's done in time for the exemption cycle. Otherwise, it would be January 1st, 2026.
Right.
So how do we move
Give it a
forward?
shot.
So I'll provide some examples for you. We can have it on an upcoming meeting. And then we can have, you know, I would say at that point, and I don't know, Kristen, if you would include your board into the larger discussion, if you think that.
Yeah, because this program is run by the assessors if it's implemented. I'd like to point out, this has been discussed in prior years, so we have a pretty hefty file on this in our office, and we've already pulled probably every town that has it, so, and we have all the different criteria. It's just kind of tailoring it to Stow and what requirements you want, I mean, age 65, do you want somebody to have owned and occupied in Massachusetts for the prior 10 years, like some of the other exemptions, you just have to set parameters, and obviously you'd form a committee to discuss that and figure that all out, so.
Awesome. Great. So we'll get some information. Great.
Thank you.
So that's the senior
Desk.
beam testing, right? Just.
All right. Thanks, Kristen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Meeting minutes. Comments on our most excellent minute makers. Nope. Excellent work. Motion on our most excellent minute takers work.
Yep, Madam Chair, I move to accept the meeting minutes of the September 26, 2023 meeting as drafted.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Any further comments on correspondence from the board?
Actually.
I just had what I hope is a quick question. These Board of Appeal letters. There's nothing for us to do with.
They're just information.
Those are
Just
their
information.
decisions.
Okay.
They're just decisions.
Just for our information.
Yes.
Okay. Second.
Final motion?
Oh, sorry.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Unanimous.